afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the very first episode of Variable, a podcast about gaming, pop culture, and obscure references and conversation. Today we'll be focusing on The Last of Us, the PlayStation exclusive. But first, my name is Matt McGregor, also known as the hero of time management. And to my right is my hetero life mate, ZaxOnTheBeach. We have yet to think of an AKA for him, but I have taken the liberty of coming up with a few, if you will indulge me.
Sounds good.
I'm actually pretty happy with that. Screw that. You know what? We're just going to go with it. So here's a few nicknames I'm thinking for you there, Zachary.
Got it.
Just marinate on these for a little while, you know what I mean? I'll have to pick one off the top. So, God of Gore.
Of Gore, the band Gore.
Yeah, that's right. So that's a play like on God of War, but
Right.
instead like we're gonna
Got it.
the metal band.
I don't think I'm really into Gore.
I
I can get behind it if you can.
I'm already behind it, 110. So number 2, Z-Bone Steak.
That rhymes.
That's right.
T-bone.
That's
steak.
right.
I'll play.
The next one, the third Ice Climber.
Cool.
Your friendly neighborhood gas man. For those who don't know. Zach, we've been friends for a long time, and sometimes you're a smelly man, like just in general, like
Right.
like not like as in like a like you're not hygienic, but when like the time when the windows froze in my car, I couldn't open the windows.
Maybe we'll skip that name.
Excellent, but just think about it. Dr. Luigi. Because you're thinner than Mario,
Right.
But you're really, really good at Dr.
I'm really
Mario.
Italian.
That brings me to my next one, my little spicy meatball. So it'd be Zach Lamott, my little spicy meatball Lamott. Okay, and last but not least, again, these are your names for the podcast, your AKs, if you will. The reincarnation of John Goodman.
But he's not dead.
Don't ruin this for me. For those of you who don't know, John Goodman is Fred Flintstone in the live-action Flintstones movie. Okay, so
What a reference.
So I mean, you don't have to take any of those, but I mean,
Yeah, well, I like 2 of them. I'll take Dr. Luigi.
excellent. Like we can think about that on a later date. But
We'll
I'm
discuss
saying,
that later.
Those are just something I thought of today when I was sitting around.
Cool. Glad you sit around thinking of pet names for me. Oh,
I never thought of it like that. Okay, so we're gonna do a little bit of an introduction for each of us. So again, my name is Matt McGregor. To my left is Zach Lamont. Tell us, Zachary, what is your favorite game of all time?
My favorite game of all time is Ocarina of Time Zelda for Nintendo 64.
Nintendo 64!
64!
64! Well, that sucks because that was gonna be my choice as well. So a very popular choice, right? So,
Yeah, it is.
A game that just changed my life. I remember getting it for Christmas one year and becoming a hermit. Children would want to go, sliding or whatever with me. Let's go GTA or whatever. And I'm like, no, like just straight up, like to my friends, no excuses needed.
My family couldn't afford a Nintendo 64, so I played it for the first time when we were living in a trailer. we lived at our old neighbor's house, and their son was an older child than myself, but he was very nerdy, and he had all the Nintendos. And there was the very first Nintendo 64 game I had ever played, and so in that regard it blew my mind. I mean, 3 dimensions,
yeah,
let's
man,
get
totally.
serious, except for Wolfenstein 3D for my Windows 95 computer. So that, plus, I mean, being like a huge Zelda fan from early childhood, it just destroyed me
Absolutely.
in a good way.
In contrast to that, my family was very rich. So I
Good.
was able to...
I know.
I was living in a sturdy home.
4 walls, not a trailer.
Yeah, no trailers for me.
Whatever, Trevor.
Okay, so before we jump into our conversation of The Last of Us, I want to tell you a story about this weekend.
Okay.
Just to go off topic.
Because so far it's been pretty on topic.
So we were having a little shindig at my apartment, and this one guy, he's drinking like the energy drinks that have alcohol in them.
Right?
So I don't know
Like
what
the
it's called.
vodka one?
Yeah, it wasn't like a Rockstar or whatever, but it was something like
Something
I want
like
to call
that.
it like Nip. It might
Okay.
it looked like almost like an Arizona iced tea, like a big tall can
Right.
like that. And anyway, so I walked inside because I was like standing outside for a little while, and I came in, and it was getting like kind of a little bit out of control. Like people were playing ping pong and like playing loud dance music and stuff, and it was kind of freaking me out. But this one guy drinking energy drink was like the calmest person at the party. So he was sitting on the couch drawing in my notebook with pen,
Right.
And he was just like calm as, you know, as all can be.
That's psychedelic.
Yeah, man. And he was just there for like, I don't know, like 5 or 10 minutes, and I was like, okay, like that's kind of weird. But so I went outside and I told everyone, I was like, I'm not sure who that guy is, but he's like just drawing in my notebook, and I feel like because he's not doing very much, but drinking a lot of alcohol and a lot of energy drink, he's gonna like in like 10 to 15 minutes, he's just gonna lose it.
Happen.
Yeah, man, he's just gonna freak. So then like everyone kind of laughs it off and thinking like, that's cute. And then about 15, 20 minutes later, he comes busting out of my front door with a giant cutout of Jose Bautista of the Toronto Blue Jays. And then he comes up to him and he yells at me, "Do you mind if I DDT this off your roof?" And I was like, I don't know, man. That's
Holy
it's
fuck.
a very specific wrestling move.
Yeah, man. What is that, like suplex or one of the classics?
Yeah, man,
Like-
it's a Jake the Snake finishing move. So I thought I'd just tell you about that, just to break the ice.
That's.
So The Last of Us.
Am
game
I allowed
came
to
out-
swear?
You're absolute. You can do whatever you want,
Okay.
Zachary. We'll bleep those out in editing. We'll add some like dog barks or like some kitty cat sounds over top.
What the? That's fun. Right from fucking Mario Paint, or what was that? It was on Mario Paint, right? The,
Yeah. You can play.
Rough.
Absolutely.
Cool. I'm happy with that.
Oh my god.
Something adorable, anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. Create your own score, but just throw in like some animal sounds in. Okay, so like I was saying, The Last of Us game comes out last month, blows everyone's minds. I kind of went in with not very, I don't want to say expectations, but like I tried to keep as much in the dark as I could. I was trying to not watch trailers, so I didn't overly know what to expect. I kind of knew it was
Yeah.
like this game that was going to be set like in a post-apocalyptic kind of setting, and I was a guy, and I was like escorting this girl in some capacity somewhere. And that's as far as I knew.
Yeah, it's the exact same situation with me. I watched the trailer that came out, like I think it was the very first trailer that came out. It kind of showed a little bit of what the atmosphere was and some of the main characters, and that's all I'd seen. I had not read any reviews. I tried to keep it as much of a surprise, and I'm really happy I did.
Absolutely, like same with me. I knew there was going to be like some sort of like monsters. Like I did see like there was a trailer.
Monsters. Sorry.
Yeah, that's all right. Bring it on. We're a conversational podcast. I just told you a story about DDTing someone
That's
off a
true.
roof. So I knew there was gonna be like monsters in the world. So like that's as far as I kind of knew. But I thought like it was gonna be a lot more like Uncharted, like something very like I could run and gun my way through the game. Like, I
Right,
thought, like,
same
they were-
developers, so
Yeah,
yeah.
exactly. It's
Yeah.
Naughty Dog, right? So I thought like I would be able to whatever take the shotgun or and I'd find like ammo like all over, like especially like
Right.
because I knew there was people I was fighting too, and they have guns. But the strange thing is that when I pick up guns from them or ammo, I pick up like 4 bullets.
Hold on a second.
Yeah, and so in that capacity, I thought like it was gonna be a lot more like action oriented and a lot less survival horror. I didn't really expect it to be like a survival type of game.
Yeah, same here. I actually thought there would be even a little more of a free roam aspect, like even from the not the trailer, but like kind of the not screenshots either, more like the promotional like poster type images. It seemed like it would be even a little more free roam, or there'd be some space. And I definitely wasn't disappointed that it wasn't, because it really kept you on track. It kept you on the story, which is
Right.
cool. But what I found, what was really interesting, is that it almost gives the illusion that it is free roam. Like the way everything's designed is I find it drives you in the right direction in a really cool way. Whereas like everything around you that seems like you could interact with it, you can't. But it's just so like the way I guess everything is laid out, and like even using colors or lighting really drives you into, like, for example, when you're at the beginning. Am I allowed to spoil?
Absolutely. So if anyone hasn't played the game and wants to play the game, we'll indicate spoilers before we actually talk about them. So
Okay.
maybe just
Okay, spoiler alert.
plug your ears here, or like fast forward.
Okay, so spoiler alert, right before your daughter dies, Joel's daughter dies,
Right.
When you're running through that mayhem, I mean, you look around and it doesn't look like there's a limit to where you could go,
Right.
but I find everything that's happening kind of creates a linear path. Like, for example, when you're running up to that gas station and explodes, like, you want to turn around, and then your brother character says, let's go through this alleyway. So everything's constructed a way that I felt like you didn't feel limited to the environment.
Absolutely.
But it did a really good job at driving you to the...
Did you die on your first playthrough when you were carrying?
No, not even.
No, me either. So like I didn't. When you explained that just now, like it absolutely right. Like so I was led by the hand, right? But I didn't know it, and that's something really, really like you said, like the lighting might have done that, right? Like with like
Right.
the street lights pointing, like kind of like flickering or something. It says kind of come down this alleyway or something,
Right.
right? Or like even like the direction of the people, like right? Like
Yeah,
I was
exactly.
trying to like keep up with the crowd of people. If they were moving towards that theater,
Right.
I was also moving towards that theater.
Yeah.
But I wasn't thinking about like I have to go this way because there's people.
And then even the more subtle touches, like right when you get out of the alleyway portion, there's a little, almost like a patio. And then out of the patio, when you get separated from your brother, you're on your own, you're carrying your daughter. There's a portion, and I've watched people play it too, so it's really interesting to see how they, like, I felt like I've been gaming for a long time, so sometimes it's hard to gauge, like, am I just really good at, figuring out where to go due to experience, or is it something that was well done in design? And there's a portion where it's just like a street lamp looking at this like sort of blown out portion of a wall, and there's like that caution tape kind of flowing. It's just really inviting, like, and that's like
Okay.
use of lighting effects, and like to where like there's a lot of possibilities. You look around and you could go right and it's open, you could go left and there's a couple buildings. So like I felt like even those little touches like lighting and stuff really help, like, drive you to where you're supposed to go, which is cool, because if somebody's watching, they don't want to see somebody like going around the walls trying to like look for a way to go. Like they want to see and then same as playing,
Right.
it never really, the game is slow, but I mean they did a really good job at driving you into the story and like that linear gameplay and not feel limited to the environment.
Absolutely. So, just because you talked about like say like there's a lot of like open-endedness to it. So let's say there's a portion where like you just defeated a bunch of clickers or enemies or whatever. Would you spend a lot of time looking around the environments, or did you want to stick more to the narrative and try and like get through it as?
Yeah, that's what I found is like I played a lot of survival games, Resident Evil, and like from when I started, I think my first game was Resident Evil 1 for PlayStation. That was a survival horror type, and I spent a lot of time looting. I definitely spent some time looting when I played, not as much, just because I was so excited to see what was going to happen to these characters, which is very different for me because, again, like I've been playing survival games for a very long time, and I definitely did enough, probably more than average amount of scrounging, but for the first time, I'd say ever, for a survival game, I felt like I was way too excited to advance in the story rather than like search every single drawer. I did kind of what I might have done in real life, whereas like if I looked in a kitchen, I wouldn't be looking in every drawer that would obviously contain nothing, whereas in older survival games, you'd find like in the cutlery drawer, you'd find a box of pistol ammo. Like that doesn't make any sense, and I felt like that was kind of how I did it, was what would I do in real life.
Right, no, absolutely. So I feel like I scrounged definitely more than average, but usually in a game like Uncharted or something, like and because of my OCD nature, I'm always looking for the treasures.
Right, the treasures, yeah,
right?
exactly.
And they don't affect the story, right? Like I'm sure Nathan Drake didn't stop to like be able to scrounge around like this like dark alley in search of like a golden egg or something. You know what I mean? So like
the silver frog,
right? The Aztec silver frog.
Yeah.
And and then. But in The Last of Us, I'd be finding comics and be finding Firefly tags, but I wasn't looking for them. What I was doing was I was looking for like the blades of scissors and like the white powder or like the bandages or whatever, so I could make a nail bomb or something, right? Like so, and I feel like that's part of the story, right? It's like I would be doing that, I think, in real life. If if nail bombs were something that was essential to my survival or a Molotov cocktail, definitely I would take the time to like look for like these items that could help me build something like that.
Right.
But at the same time, I don't know, like finding like scissors, you know what I mean? It was strange at the same time. It was a strange thing, but it was enough. It lent itself enough to reality that I felt it was like okay. It wasn't taking away from the story for me that I was taking an extra like 10 minutes to like check out drawers and everything.
Exactly.
Right? Like,
piles of trash.
But even like some of the things that you'd find, like say like you'd find like a child's note to their parents or something like that, and I was always really excited to find something like that was because you know what I mean? Like it never overly explains why the world is in like such rough shape, right? Like you're basically like, at the
piecing it
beginning,
together.
Yeah, exactly, right. And you can see like other people's not expectations, but their experience, their reaction exactly to what was going on. And one that really hit me was like this kid. He's writing like basically a little journal about his parents and they're fighting or whatever, and then the dad explains to the son that they have to let their dog go, so they drive him to like the edge of town and like let the dog into like the wilderness, like in the bush.
Mm-hmm.
And like that really got to me, like, you know what I mean, like that, like as a child, the child's perspective, he said he knows his dad is lying, and I don't know, that just really got to me, like the idea of like that kind of experience.
Well, that's what I find really that why video games to me are the coolest like digital media is the idea that, and especially games like this, and this is why I fell in love with The Last of Us. Like every little thing about it to me was absolutely phenomenal. But the idea that in a movie, you watch a movie or a series, and there's a lot of things like, you know, if it's a you know, watching say like The Walking Dead, it's set in the same type of atmosphere as Last of Us. You're not dealing with zombies necessarily, but same, you know, apocalyptic situation. But there are things in The Walking Dead they like the team would stumble upon that, like, you look and like this room tells a story, or this tells a story, this guy tells a story, but you never really get to interact with those things or people as much as you might want to or not want to. And one of the coolest things about any interactive media like video games to me, and especially Last of Us did this really well, is like you were saying with you find those journals, maybe not a lot of people found that journal or that series of journals or whatever. I did, and like I really liked that. I got as much from it as I wanted to. If I was really interested in this house that I was in and wanted to reveal the story, if I was looking around in this house and like, this looks like a certain situation where like there's a kid here, you go into the kid's room, so there was a child in this household, you know that it's not like a bachelor or an old couple or anything like that. So you find this house that tells a story, and you have the ability to reveal that story if you want to, as much as, you know, like obviously there are limits to it, but it really brings everything to life in it. And like it could tell its own, like this story within a story within a story. I mean, like how many video games do that? I find a lot more nowadays, but I loved that aspect that you could get as much as you want from it. If someone wants to play Last of Us and get through it and just really digs the shooting and building bombs and getting through that, like, then absolutely you have the option to do that, where it's not, you know, put in front of your face, but the people who are looking for a really interactive story can get that from it as well.
Absolutely. So I was going to say this for a little bit later, but actually, since we're talking about it now, do you find The Last of Us is fun? I know it's a very like generic or like kind of very like a general sentence or a question, but for myself, I feel that the game was, what was fun about the game was the story, and like some parts, like mechanically, like say like a quick time event where like I'm jamming on the X button, so like the whatever one of the other survivors is trying to like jam my face into a piece of glass, like the mechanics of the game, that's not fun. I mean, just mashing a button constantly to do it, but what's on screen is the part that's fun. That narrative, that's what's driving it, right? Right. And I feel that like, say when we were younger and we were looking for a game to play, in order to keep my attention, it would have to be fun. Say like something like Mario Brothers, where there's like no story or anything, but it was just like mechanically very solid game that was very, very like fun. But I think like that's not necessarily like both things are really, really good. But I think like as we move forward, I don't feel like The Last of Us was like very, very fun in that same regards. But like that might be like a good thing, right? Like say like movies or books. There's movies and books that aren't fun. Right. You know what I mean? Like I don't watch or I didn't read like The Road because I thought like The Road was gonna be fun. Right. Like it was very like dark and very like apocalyptic. Very like The Road's like a whatever. It basically the developers of The Last of Us read the Road and they're like, we want to do the exact same thing. Right. Something very, very similar. Like it's a man and a younger child that was brought up like in this like really destructive world. Right. And so, but I feel like before, I mean, like 10 years ago, games just had to be fun and not necessarily like. I feel like now, like maybe it's almost time to like drop the word game, right? Or like have two categories almost, like where like one's like an experience and then like one's a game, right? Like,
yeah. Absolutely. Like, and that's what I was trying to say earlier too, is that I think we've come to the point where like video games like The Last of Us are more or less like an interactive film or interactive book, anything that you could get something where you're getting to know the characters, you fall in love with them, or you fall in love with a story, or you fall in love with something. It gives you something when you're done, like an experience more or less, rather than like I got 10,000 points in like a game where like I was trying to get a ball into a hoop of some kind. Like, but like going back to what you were saying, I agree 100%. Like Last of Us was definitely not like a, like when I was done, I was never like, oh man, like the part where like I like leapt on top of this thing and I pressed like triangle 2 times and did like a combo on this guy. Like when I was done the game, I was never talking to anybody about the mechanics or the gameplay or the controllers or the controls. I was talking about the story and the characters, which was really great to me. I mean, that's what I'm interested most in. Like, I mean, that's why I still read books and that's why I still watch movies. Like, but I find it also interesting that the game could be so simply mapped out and have such simple mechanics, but still be fun just in that different way.
Absolutely. Like, don't get me wrong. I think the mechanics are really solid in The Last of Us. Like, there's like, say when you're with Ellie and you're Joel and she's hiding with you, and you go in that same hiding spot as her. Like, you don't interact with her, like where you're pushing her out of the way, like right. you almost like father her, you know what I mean? Like, right. There's like where like your arm is like around her and you're like you're protecting her, instead of like just having like the two collide, like the two character models collide, and me pushing Ellie into like into danger or something. Not that like it really matters. Like the enemies are seeing Ellie constantly, and she's like, that was close. You know, like you just ran right in front of that clicker, making lots. And stop telling me how scary it is. I know it's scary. Like there's still monsters around us.
Yeah, that was my only thing about that game that kind of took me out of it in the slightest, was the idea that whoever was following you, a teammate of some kind, would kind of go out into the open, and you know, an enemy that had eyes would come out and just like go about their business, like they're still searching for the group, but like there's Ellie like right in the open with a hunting rifle.
Right. Wouldn't it piss you off more if they saw her?
Yeah, absolutely, it would, and I think that's what it came down to. The developers, like, do we program this so that you're revealed when that happens, or do we carry on? And I respect that decision. Yeah, I agree.
I think they made the right choice. Okay, so next, here's kind of a question again, like another question I'm like throwing out to you. So, should developers focus strictly on a single player during a narrative-heavy game, or is there room for multiplayer?
Right. See, this one's complicated because when I started, even when I had beaten the game, I didn't think there even was an online.
Right.
I've been playing the online a lot. You have been playing the online a lot because we play together. We're a team. Heterosexual team.
A clan. Yeah, clan, if you will. Say.
But I was really impressed with the online. I mean, I definitely cannot say that there is no room for it because, I mean, like the hours of entertainment I've got from this game, like, I'm not a huge online guy. When I pick up a game, the first thing I do is beat the campaign, and then the online is optional to me. That's why I'm not super into the Call of Duty franchise. I mean, I always enjoy playing the Call of Duty franchise games, the campaign, and I've dipped into the online, and they're fun for what they are, like especially socially. But it's not the most important thing when I go and buy a game. It's usually for either like a direct co-op like campaign or a campaign purpose. So I wouldn't go out on a limb and say that there's no room for it because, like, I go online and play Last of Us by myself sometimes, which is very rare for me. It's because it's so much fun. I think they had a unique approach to it, and I'm really happy that they did. But for the most part, I would never say like every game has to have an online or I'm not going to buy it.
Right. Because,
like I said, for the most part, I'm looking for that story experience, or if I'm looking for an online experience, then I'm going to go buy a game for the online purposes.
Right. So what about like say The Last of Us doesn't have an online multiplayer portion, but the narrative's better. Like again, this is like a hypothetical, right? Like, let's say like they devoted those resources on, like from a team standpoint, where like then the narrative is like, let's say like I don't want to throw a number out there, but like say like 10% better.
Gotcha.
Like, I don't think you can quantify like better. You know what I mean? Right. But like, at the same time, I feel that like, don't get me wrong, I love The Last of Us multiplayer. Like we said, we've sunk a few hours into this game already. But I'm saying like ignore like The Last of Us. Let's say like Call of Duty. Let's say they like I don't think they'll ever get rid of like the multiplayer portion. But let's say like they get rid of the single player, where they just have a Call of Duty multiplayer and that's it.
Right.
Like is all of a sudden is the multiplayer gonna be better because they have like that more time and more resources to put towards like just one thing, right? So like what I'm saying is like making both in one package kind of takes away, or does it make one great experience, or but if you have two multiplayer and single player, are those two lesser? You know what I mean? Because of that other.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. I would definitely sacrifice the online for, like you said, the 10% better campaign in that game, because that's what I got the most out of when I played The Last of Us. I mean, again, for me, it was like I felt like I experienced something, and if it could have been even better, then hell, great. But I mean, when I played the campaign, like I said, I didn't even know the online existed, and it still blew my mind. I felt like they did not sacrifice anything in the campaign. I felt like they had a vision, they had something very specific they were going for, and I felt like they achieved that better than I could even imagine. So incorporating the online, like, I understand what you mean, especially like if you're building, say, maps for online. Like maybe that team could have like developed a better environments for some of the sequences. Like The Last of Us wasn't 100% for me from start to finish in terms of environment. Like, I mean, there's definitely some portions where it looked like, hey, they needed to slap together like a sewer area, and like, you know, I definitely wouldn't say slap together lightly. Everything seemed really thought out to me.
Right.
But like you said, if like that time and energy was put in from like the online team who developed the maps into maybe creating 100% start to finish environment, then I would have chosen that over having the online, and which is saying a lot because the online is ridiculously fun.
Right. So let's talk about the online for a second. So we both kind of played the Firefly side, like from like whatever, like week 1 to week 12 together, and it was awesome. Like, and it's strange, right? Because like I feel like The Last of Us multiplayer is just 2 modes, but like when you like, we look at something like Call of Duty where you have like capture the flag, like domination, like demolition, team deathmatch, and you have like all these different options for multiplayer. And maybe like that's my problem with that type of game is like there's too much, there's an abundance of choice, right? Like there's games game modes I've never even touched through, like for Call of Duty or like Battlefield or Assassin's Creed. There's like I having like those only 2 options, like the supply rate and the survivors, like it made me like focus on just doing one of those or both of them. Like I started in supply raid because it was most like team deathmatch, just to kind of get the hang of what was going on. But then I definitely gravitated more to Survivor.
Yeah.
Like Survivor was awesome. Like I think it was brilliant.
What I love about the Survivors, and this is such almost like a psychological experiment or like a social experiment, which I love when online games do this. But what I love most about Survivors is that fear of death. Like, when players play it, they're not like, okay, whatever, I'll die, I'll fucking respawn and kill some people. Yeah. In this one, you die and you're out for the round, which is annoying. Right. And also, like, there's that general fear, which is interesting to interact with. So you're a player who also has a fear of death, playing this game and getting through the round with as many points and killing as many of your opponents as possible. Now, what's most interesting about it, I find, is, again, going back to the social experiment aspect, is it really tells you what kind of person you're playing with when you're on a team. When, say, you're downed in the online, if you haven't played it yet, when you go down, you have an opportunity to get picked back up by your teammates, or even faster by several teammates. So you're not necessarily dead or gone yet if you're put down, but if you take any more damage when you're down, you're out of the round. So I think it's very interesting to see like what kinds of people, when they're scared of death, will come back to rescue a teammate or split. Exactly.
Yeah, man, we've seen a lot of people split on us.
Well, that's like, I've seen both. I've seen people do some incredible things like that. It really, I feel like it tells me about who they are. If there was an apocalyptic situation, who would be the kinds of people that would like see a woman trapped under a tree where it would take like a minute and put them in a high-risk situation where they're like lifting that log off that person to escape, or would they split? Right. You know what I mean? I think it's very interesting.
So I'm trapped under a gas truck,
right?
And then like you're just driving by on your bike.
There's a lot of variables in that. What did I get from Christmas or birthday from you that year?
Noted. All right, like for future Christmas presents. So I'm trapped under a gas truck. You're like, oh, there's Matt. He's trapped under a gas truck, and there's a potential for me to like bite the bullet, so to speak. And do you come to save me? Do you come pick me up?
Well, a lot of variables here. I mean, this year you did pretty good. Your birthday.
You know what my favorite part of the online is?
What?
The connecting to your Facebook. I think like that.
Right.
I think that's easily my favorite part.
That's such a yeah, absolutely. It's a very thoughtless process, idea, but it's fucking amazing.
I thought it was.
It's hilarious.
I think
that's
cool.
cool.
It's the novelty portion that made me just laugh because
I don't even know what it's like when you don't connect it.
Yeah, I mean,
I wonder if it's like John Smith is doing this or whatever.
Right. So when I first did it, I didn't know what was going on. Right. So I explained this to you already. When we first started playing, was that so I connected to. My Facebook.
For people who don't know, when you connect your profile to your Facebook, what happens is the way your clan is set up and the way you unlock your unlockables is you have a clan of people. Now, they're not real people in real life, but what it is it's a number. So the higher the number, and that's the whole drive for the multiplayers. You're getting as many points as you can to collect parts. And what those parts do is it increases your clan size. So you have this clan of people in your faction, and when you get more points online is it increases your clan size and getting more unlockables. So what Matt's talking about when you connect your Facebook is it kind of gives a name to your clan.
Absolutely. So from people that you know from your Facebook.
That's right, yeah.
Actual your Facebook friends, right? So
Sorry,
I should have explained myself a little better. Mm-hmm. You just shut the hell up. you have a cigarette.
I suppose I will.
And so when I first started, so I thought when I connected to my Facebook, I would see my Facebook feed. So I'd see my friends posting and whatever that they were doing, hitting the bar tonight or whatever. I hate work. I hate Mondays.
Graduated from college.
Yeah, very specific example. And then so I was seeing things like going down to the lake, and so that still made sense. And I would see one of my friends from back home in Birch Island being making sure the generator's working, and I was oh, okay, that's still seems a little strange for a Facebook post, but yes, I still buy that. That makes sense. Or I'd see things is fishing or something, or
right.
cleaning fish, something that was still
right.
Out of the ordinary but still believable. But then it was my auntie, so it's Bez McGregor is stockpiling ammo, and that's the part that when it really got to me, where I was I wanted to call home and ask my parents to make sure Auntie Bez was all right, that she wasn't just holed up in her home.
So for those of you who don't know too, when you don't do well, when you increase your clan size, it becomes harder to get enough points to keep your clan growing. So what happens is if you don't get enough points, if you have a bad round, your people start getting sick and dying, so your clan size decreases, and therefore the less multipliers for the next round you get, or the less customization items you unlock. So out of the blue, sometimes it'll say, something when your clan members could die, and therefore that number decreases for your clan size. So it'll actually pick a person from your clan that's been added from your Facebook account, right, and explain that they have died.
Right, and that's worrisome when you're not aware of this right. Metagame, right? It's we had seen Robert Lamotte has died, and if you're unaware of that, that could be very shocking. Mom, is Dad okay? Oh yeah, he's just watching the main road.
He's just gassing up the generator. Okay, I saw that post earlier.
That one still makes sense. Yeah, so I feel the multiplayer is great. I think we had some really great rounds, and then even some people have invited us to their clan, and it's been a really positive experience, right?
They probably should have warned people though. My aunt's dead.
Or going insane. It would say yeah. It would say something like Jessica Cashman is having a nervous breakdown.
Yeah.
And I'd be oh my god.
Had a rough day at work.
Yeah, Jesus Christ. Settle down there on Facebook. Don't need to post that stuff. So anyway, it was just a fun little meta game, right? So but it was very humorous once I figured out what it was doing. So my last point in regards to multiplayer is is this just a way of enticing gamers to hang on to their copies instead of trading them in?
Right.
So let's say if something like Uncharted, or because The Last of Us is actually pretty long campaign wise, but say Uncharted, I can beat that campaign in 8 hours.
Right.
Some people as soon as they buy the game first day, they beat the game, they trade it in. So let's say over 2 days, and all of a sudden now there's a used copy at EB Games or Best Buy or Future
right.
Shop or something, right? So then when that kid comes in on the weekend and he wants to buy Uncharted 3, now he has the option to buy a used game. So now that profit and that revenue goes towards Best Buy and GameSpot now, right? Instead of like going towards like the developer, right? So like
Right.
I don't know, like it's by having that multiplayer component, is it now enticing people to hang on to their copy for an extra few weeks, or is it like is that like the ploy behind multiplayer having in every single game now?
Right. Here's another interesting thing to consider, and this is actually I've heard this through people with mics playing online, and this is really cool. And
like, that's all I hear with people with mics is just on my case all the time.
Yeah, man, that was rough. What I've been hearing from a couple of different people, which is really cool, is the idea that now they've done well in the campaign, so they've done well against artificial intelligence.
Right.
They beat them, whatever. Now let's apply that to real people in real life. What decisions is a real person going to make, etc. And which is, I find, which is my favorite part of online gaming is that exact notion is. How well can you do against real people?
Absolutely.
Like I was playing Battlefield last night with Spence, and it was interesting. There, and I've come from a long, I think one of my favorite things in a campaign is like boss battles. There were really no real boss battles in Last of Us, which is interesting why I still loved it. But like the Metal Gear, like the boss battles are what I live for in that franchise. But you think about how those are programmed and like the way a boss like scenario is done, and it's cool. I was playing Battlefield last night, and like there was one part where there's these people in a helicopter antagonizing just us at like a command post. We were playing Conquest, and what they were doing was they were landing on the roof so that they'd be taking it, and then every time they'd notice that we were taking it, the helicopter would fly down and take us out.
Right.
So only when we were in the flag section would they come down. So like. That happened a couple of times, and I noticed that routine from those two players.
Yeah.
So, like, I coordinated with Spence, like, a counter to that, kind of like I would approach a boss in a video game. Whereas, like, I was like, okay, now next time he comes down, like, I'm going to go inside the flag so it's being captured, and when that happens, you're going to have your RPG ready at another location and flank him. So, like, I don't know. There's that really cool concept that now let's test our skills against real people in real life, which is kind of a cool take on it. I don't know if again you might be right. Maybe it's a way for the franchise to keep you locked into that game and less turnover for the game itself and letting it go used. But there's that to consider. Maybe they thought, cool, these people are doing well in this survival situation. Let's see how that applies to real life situations. And like I guess online is in no way near like a real life situation. Yeah, exactly.
Right. Okay, so Battlefield 3 has no single player campaign. Do you still find it like great?
Absolutely, yeah. I bought that game primarily for the online.
Right. I've played the campaign for like the first two missions, and like it kind of lost me, right? Like it felt like more military shooters, right? And like that's where like they start to lose me. But absolutely, like, I think we've probably both sunk a few days, like literally worth of hours into Battlefield 3, right? So like we just started playing it, and that's why it's very like fresh in our minds right now. So like we played on Xbox for. It's again like a few days, I want to say, but again, like PlayStation Plus,
in
it's
hours,
free. It's free right now. Go play Battlefield 3. We'll see
Join us.
We'll see you on the field. Okay, so I'm gonna move away from the multiplayer. Instead, I'm gonna talk about sequels. So there are too many sequels on the market, not enough focus on like new IP, like intellectual property, right? So there's not enough new ideas out there.
Right. I agree with that in a lot of. There's some sequels that come out that blow my mind, and others not so much. I felt like they just like, okay, we made a lot of money from part one, let's make a part two with more functionality, etc. That one's a tough one. In my opinion, I think that there's not enough IPs. There are not enough IPs.
Absolutely, right. So like, for me, like it's when there is a new IP, like our consumers like within the industry, are they supporting that new IP, right? Like I know like I'm guilty myself. Like that's something I wanted to change about my buying habits is like I want to start buying like even if it's an unproven game, like I want to check it out if it's like somewhat interesting to me. Now that I actually have like before I was a student, right? So I had like nothing. Like I didn't have cash to like buy these like games, right? I was gonna buy something that's very safe. Like if like I liked Assassin's Creed, so now I'm gonna buy Assassin's Creed 2 because it's something that's familiar and I know it's good. I know I'm getting into. Right. Something like a game just came out recently called Remember Me, and I thought the concept is really, really cool. So it's this this girl, she gets her memory erased, and she's like in the future, like Neo Paris. And what she does is she's trying to get this it's very like Big Brother, where like you're going against this big corporation, and you're trying to figure out why your memory was wiped and blah blah blah. But what you can do now is like memories are kind of a commodity. Like you can sell memories to different people. So in some of the gameplay mechanic is that you dive into people's memory, and then you change things in the memory so that it makes them react differently when you see them again in the real world.
Right.
So like you're trying to like again, I haven't played it yet, but there's a portion where like you're trying to get past this guy, right? Like he's like a guard or something, and you jump into his memory, and you have to remix it essentially, and you have to change it so that like he thinks that he killed someone, but he actually didn't. And then so like when you actually get the memory remix correct, you come back out, he's kind of mental now. Like he has like something wrong with him, like where like he thinks he killed this person, and he like goes and like kills himself, or like he ends up like leaving that area so you can buy him. Right. And I think that concept is really really cool, but I didn't buy that game. Like because again, it was unproven, and I read like some reviews, and they were very like mediocre, like 6 out of 10, I'd say was the average. So that deterred me from buying that game, even though like let's say if I bought it and then Remember Me 2 comes out next year and it's just awesome, like where they ironed out all those kinks and they like had like a really, really great product. Instead, I bought like something like say I don't know what I bought recently, but let's say like I'm using Uncharted 3. Like I knew what I was getting into. I knew that game was gonna be really, really great, right? Instead of buying Remember Me. Right. So like I think there's not enough consumer support. One, because like used games, like people are trading in their games. Right. And then two, like they want something that's a lot more like safe, right? So like
yeah, I think it goes back to the oldest concept where like like say as a musician, you get one spotlight. We're in a situation where you've got thousands of people screaming for you, and automatically you're popular, not because all those people are there in the first place, but just because that's been proven now. Right. There's a stadium full of people that obviously like this thing. Now subconsciously, I like this thing because it's popular. Right. Same like the Call of Duty franchise. I mean, like to me, there have been no real crazy improvements in the gameplay. Like there's nothing really keeping me going to Call of Duty. In fact, when I do burn on it, like I'm good for a couple of years. I'll play a lot of other games just because I could get around that in my head. It's not because of the franchise that I buy Call of Duty. It's when I'm looking to duty out, like more or less.
Right. You never heard that term before.
But yeah, like I find a lot of people like Call of Duty is such a popular franchise, and I find it's like just safe for people. They know exactly what they're getting into, like you said, and there's that franchise just has so much pull that it doesn't matter what they do to the graphics or mechanics when they release a new game. Right. All that matters is that name now. Right. Absolutely. So yeah, like you were saying, I think if there's enough people trying new things and like, that sort of thing, I feel like that could, like eliminate that idea. I mean, even for Battlefield, I had to introduce Battlefield to a lot of Call of Duty players, and I'd say like a solid 65% of those people went crazy over it, and they had never heard of the Battlefield franchise before. It wasn't super popular before 3, and it's funny because if I had never introduced them to it, or like, I don't think they would have gone to the shop and saw Battlefield 3 sitting beside the new Call of Duty and had chosen, Battlefield 3.
Absolutely. So I think like, you're right. Like that person that can only buy, like say you're like not that I say like kids should be playing like mature games, but like, like if you're a parent and you buy like, it's Christmas time and like when Call of Duty comes out in November and Battlefield comes out as well, like, even I think parents even know like Call of Duty, right? Like let's say the general consumer, like they go to the store and like you said, if they're like right next to each other, there's not even a thought in their mind where they're gonna grab Battlefield 3. They're gonna grab Call of Duty X. Right. So like I do think that it's like strong business sense to have like those sequels like in your kind of your rotation. Right. To continue to make money. I don't think it's like evil practice by companies to like be like pumping out Call of Duty every year. I think like if they want to do that, then that brings in like enough revenue where like that company now has like X amount of profit and that they can reinvest into like studios to make some like a really cool new IP. Then great, like that's super. Like I think I'm pretty Call of Duty out. Right. But if Activision was like, okay, like Call of Duty makes this amount of money, so now we have an extra X million of dollars to like on the books to put towards something new. Right. So like if people keep buying Call of Duty in order for us to like get like a brand new IP, then yeah, like I'll let those people keep buying Call of Duty because it's its strong business sense, where you can have part of your business looking at your stable of like money makers, and then something where you can try to have something that's a little bit more new and interesting, right? Except even though it's not going to sell as well as like again like a Naughty Dog could have put Uncharted 4 out instead of like The Last of Us, right? And then but they put The Last of Us out, and I think it's better than all the Uncharted.
Yeah, absolutely. And like that's what I was gonna say is that's what's really cool. Like getting back to The Last of Us is that it's almost like that. Not necessarily the franchise is growing, but like the game company, which is a really cool new thing. I'm finding like. Treyarch does, like the newer Call of Duties or whatever. And, like I never really hear anybody like saying like Treyarch's putting out a different IP or something like that.
Right.
It's like, people know it as Call of Duty. And I find it's really cool that Naughty Dog is getting a lot of buzz versus the franchise.
Absolutely.
Which is great.
Absolutely. It's cool that you can actually put like almost a face, like that branding over top of
right.
a brand. You know what I mean? Like if Uncharted's the brand, Naughty Dog is also like a brand, and it's like almost getting bigger than the game that they're putting out, right?
Right.
Like you look forward to the next Naughty Dog game, not necessarily the next Uncharted,
exactly.
right? So we're kind of talking about like really big games. We talked about like Call of Duty and Assassin's Creed and Uncharted and etc. How do you feel about like indie games and their kind of their role in like even like the like having like say Sony puts out the Last of Us, but then they also put out Journey. You know what I mean? Like how important is that to like publishers now?
Right. Well, the way I feel about indie games is kind of like the whole underground or indie movement of music in the last like 40 years or so, is that the idea behind independent art is so that they don't have to be funded by a major company who are setting guidelines for whatever's selling or whatever's most relatable. To me, indie games are great for both business reasons and for artistic reasons, in terms of somebody who's making an indie game could have like anything like an abusive dad, in their game. Whereas like, okay, as a major franchise, like an abusive dad doesn't relate to everybody. It's something that's like a minority of people experience in their lives. So we're not going to put that in the game. Instead, we're going to do this, which is more relatable or more popular. Indie games have the ability to do something that doesn't have to sell. Even like 2D platformers, like, I really doubt that Naughty Dog would invest into a 2D platformer at this point in their, in that for that corporation. Whereas an like a couple of guys can make something that like we miss it, like from Metroid or from Super Mario or whatever, when we're looking into something like that, because those games aren't made anymore.
Right.
Which is a beautiful thing about indie games to me, is that like playing Super Meat Boy, it wasn't to me, it wasn't like I wasn't super interested in the story. I was more like into the mechanics and like the actual 2D platform nature of it.
Like that fun, right? We were talking about earlier, like
exactly,
the mechanic is fun, or is the story fun, right? It's like that's I think like the industry is really growing up, right? Like we have like those different options now. Like we have like we can go see like our big blockbuster kind of at the movie or at the movies. You know what I mean? Like say like go see like say Wolverine. Like Wolverine just came out. Like that's a movie like I know what I'm getting into, right? Like, it's not something I'm gonna like sit there and like really think about and like give me kind of introspective like on my life, right? Or something like
exactly.
And then like don't give me that look.
I don't know, man. After I played Super Meat Boy, I decided to go to college.
But that's what I mean. Like it's. But when you look at something like I don't know, like a book or something like that can make me very like start thinking about my own relationship with like my family or something. Right. Even like there's quieter movies, right? It's like now there's quieter games. But like I was saying, like they're not really games anymore. Like they're like experiences, right?
Right.
I would consider like if you just like took everything out of Journey and you were just like you focused on the mechanics, like Journey was just like I remember like when I first
2 buttons.
when it came out, like I remember I was telling a few people about it, and before it came out, I remember like just seeing the trailer for it, and so my friend was like, "Oh, what's it about?" And I'm like, "I don't know. You're like this guy in a robe and you're like walking in the desert." And he's like, "What else happens?" I'm like, "I don't know. Like you're just walking in the desert." He goes, "That sounds really stupid."
Right.
And I'm like, "Well, you're stupid." You hear that, Jamie? You're stupid. Because that game was great, but I mean, it was an experience, right? It wasn't about the mechanics. It was about like caring about that other player, right? I had such like a positive experience with Journey.
Yeah, me too. I got very lucky. I think maybe a lot of people didn't have. I mean, in terms of the game itself, I mean, there's not anything super special. I mean, special enough that I feel if somebody played with a player who's played it before or didn't have that good social experience, I still feel like it's a decent game. But what made Journey for me was that that universal language or that interactive social experience. Like I could get into that game, but I mean,
right.
Overall, when I was done or when I was telling people about it, I was never like, that was a really cool game. I was like, that was a really cool social experience.
Right. Okay, so lastly, on the scale of 1 to 10, 10 being great, 1 being very poor, how would you rate The Last of Us? An aquamarine.
I give Last of Us, oh man, it's like between 9.5 and 10. I mean,
spoilers for you. 10. It's a 10, Zachary.
Yeah.
There's nothing.
Yeah, there's no points. Then I would give it a 10.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Well, they always say like, look, you can give it points if you want.
It's gotta be an integer. It's gonna be 10.
That's what I'm saying, right? So it's there's nothing that's gonna come out this year that's gonna be better than The Last of Us. I'm gonna put that out right now. Like I did like BioShock Infinite, and I feel BioShock Infinite was really great, but like that game is gone from my mind. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
I don't even consider that for like my game of the year this year, right? Like I thought it was really great, but at the same time it doesn't even come close to like what I experienced with The Last of Us.
Yeah, absolutely. Same with me when I was playing Infinite. It was just like, oh my god, this is my favorite game. Like this is a game I haven't played yet that like I'm in love with, and it's as soon as I got like past the prologue in Last of Us, I'd completely forgotten about Infinite altogether.
Right, even like when you're scrounging The Last of Us for like scissors and stuff or whatever, like that seems legit. Like when I'm in Infinite, it's like digging through the trash. And it's like, oh, you found some cotton candy, and you eat it, and you get like some health back, but you're like your
some
mana
magic
goes
powers.
down. Yeah, I'm like, what the hell? Like what? Who would throw out cotton candy? First of all, but who's gonna eat that pineapple in the trash? So, I mean, like there was just things that took me out of it, and I still think it's a great game, but I screw you, BioShock Infinite, you suck. Just in comparison. So that's relatively it for us today at Variable, but next podcast we're gonna try and do a little bit more frequently from here on out, but we're gonna pick, I think the next game we're gonna do is the new Splinter Cell.
Cool.
Again, I'm not entirely sure which one, or if we'll have more people like on, if it'll just be me and Zach again. But like, it'd be cool to have like some differing opinions. You know, like when we talked about The Last of Us today, it was very like we have a very similar opinion on The Last of Us, right? We both think it's just phenomenal, but I could see like a lot of people not finding it that great because it's slow. Like there's moments where you're just walking around for like 10-15 minutes and you're doing nothing but walking. But there's never a thought when I'm playing it. I'm not like I was still scared that at some point something was going to jump out or like at something, right? Like, but.
Well, I found it funny that like I was even telling my girlfriend, yes, I have a girlfriend, that my favorite parts of the game were those slow parts. Like I didn't feel like my existence was being threatened. Like I actually felt safe. Like there were moments in the stressful parts where I was almost too stressed out, which was really cool that a video game can make me feel that way. And especially the power of that, that softer atmosphere where you're in a state of you're not scared, and which is really interesting.
The basement part, right? Last of Us, I mean, it was like I was really sweaty like during like that entire part. And it's like, hey, like you have to start the generator. Like I don't want to start that generator.
Yeah, exactly. It's gonna make a lot of noise.
Yeah, and I was like, man, there's monsters everywhere, and I'm by myself, and I'm like, in like real life, like I'm kind of like a wiener, right? Like, I'm not like there's no way I'd be able to fight off like. Say there's a clicker or something. There's no way I could choke out a clicker in real life.
Oh yeah,
like,
absolutely.
I was really happy I was Joel and not myself.
Even when I was doing it, I was like, "You're insane, man! Why would you touch that thing?" But like, that's what was really cool. I found that was what kind of separated that game from other survival games. Say when you're dealing with zombies, something without a real like human consciousness is. I found that what was special about these is the unpredictability, especially for a stealth game. I mean, as soon as I got into that, I played games like even Manhunt. I would even compare Last of Us to in a way.
Absolutely.
But the idea is that it's always so predictable. I mean, whenever I play a stealth game, right from the Game Boy version of MGS, like you study their habits and you study their movements and everything's very predictable about the nature of your AI, and then you deal with it. But I found in Last of Us that what was most terrifying about these infected was the idea that it was so unpredictable, like their movements, the way they'd turn their heads suddenly. Like you're dealing with insanity versus like a zombie, which I found really cool. And another really cool thing was, actually, I really want to mention this to see if we end up getting comments for this. I don't know, but did anybody else find like what are people's takes on these infected? Do you think that they still have somewhat of their old self within their head, or are they simply almost like a zombie-esque type of, I need food for running on General Motor skills? Right. Like there's parts in the game that hint to me like there's a hint of
humanity left within them.
You'll run into infected sometimes in The Last of Us where they're like crying or something, and to me that was so fucked up because I mean, like,
because you're killing someone's like consciousness, right?
Right.
Even though they're like in this monster kind of body, like you're basically extinguishing someone's life.
Exactly.
But that's something that I felt was really like in like a lot of games like where you're killing people like constantly. Like, I never feel awful about that
exactly.
At all. In this game, I was, but it felt justified at the same time, right? Like I felt like it's them or me, and
right?
Like, there might be some sort of humanity left in them, but I can't take that chance anymore. Like I have no supplies. I have like this girl to look after. You know what I mean? Like, and it's them or me. Right?
That's what's cool. It's so hard when I've been describing Last of Us to people. It's really hard to be like, you don't understand that this game is different, but that would be the best way I would describe The Last of Us. Is it differentiates itself in so many ways. It's such a somber, like almost sad game, and beautiful at the same time. But when it at a surface level you try to explain it, it's like, well, it's set in post-apocalyptic and there's zombies and okay, so why is that different from like Left 4 Dead, or why is that different from whatever? It's different. You just have to play it. But again, like that was a big thing for me, is that's how the infected different. Like I felt awful sometimes for these people, and I didn't feel like they're an enemy and like, oh yeah, headshot, you're done. You know what I mean? Like
I've heard you say that though while playing online.
Well, online, yeah, it's a different story. But like these infected is really like different approach to like a monster, like still terrifying in the same elements as most video games, but there's that sadness to it, or that really I don't know, that different approach to it. I really, really liked and also disliked at the same time.
I 100% agree. Before we sign off, actually, now that you kind of mentioned this again, spoiler again, we're gonna discuss the ending. So I mean, like we're only gonna talk for a little bit longer. So I mean, if you want to fast forward or if you want to shut her down here, we're not gonna talk for too much longer. But the ending, like did you feel it was very fitting? Like it kind of leaves it very open ended for your interpretation, or do you see a Last of Us sequel?
Right.
Were you happy? Well, first of all, were you happy with the ending?
Right. Yeah, I was actually very happy. I've never experienced an ending like that, and I was very nervous about the ending because, like, to me, the game was relentlessly good, that I was worried that they were going to shortchange you on it, or they're going to fuck it up in some way. Like, how are they going to cap this beautiful game off? And what I liked most about it, I think, was that it was unpredictable. I did not predict that ending at all. I had a lot of ideas, and I felt like driven to try to predict it. And it really, like, there's some movies I'll watch or games that I'll play that I'll predict the ending, and then it doesn't do what I predicted, but it's almost like they were trying to make it unpredictable. Like it just like it takes a weird twist. It's like, well, that sucks. Like it's just like I was very happy with it. I mean, to me, the ending was a little bit short. I felt like it could have been dragged out, especially because like you just get to the Firefly, the research facility. I felt like that sequence was pretty short. But I mean, overall, like the ending, and then when you're in the forest with Ellie and that whole thing, like like my heart sank. Like
me too. Absolutely. I was left with this like feeling, like almost like dread. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like Joel's very like selfish, but at the same time,
right.
I think I was telling you about this before. Was like I felt very relatable. You know what I mean? Like there was someone like in that world that was they're basically my entire world. Like, that was like a replacement for like his daughter, right?
Right.
And that if I could get that back, like, would I give that person up, like, and be really selfish, or like, would I have the chance of saving mankind, not 100% guarantee, like, to let them like harvest her for her potential cure, right? So, like, I mean, like, I definitely understand the choice. There was not a moment where I was like, oh, like, Joel, like, what the hell, man, what are you doing? Like, not for me. I was like, man, I could 100% like agree with your choice. Like, except for the part where, like, I'm not sure how you handle it, but when you go into like the surgical room and like Ellie's on the table and there's like the doctors, right? And like I was,
she
like,
blew them away.
Like,
no, I eventually did. Like,
yeah, but like, I didn't like running like pick them up and like left a nail bomb. Like, just the most painful death. But like I came in and I held my gun up, and then like the surgeons are like kind of like what are you doing? Like, get the hell out of here! And they're like yelling at me, and I have my gun up and I'm like pointing at his chest and everything, and like I'm waiting for like a different option so I could just, you know, like tell them to like drop the weapon and get on the floor, and then I can like maybe knock him out or something, and then take Ellie, but instead like then he starts coming at me with like the scalpel, and so it's like oh, I don't feel done. Then I took him out, and then like the other two doctors I thought would attack me, so like before I preemptively took out the second doctor and then the woman nurse. Right. So like I'm not sure like how you handled it.
I guess you missed a little bit of dialogue then.
Yeah, like because I was just like so panicky, right? Like, I was because like I didn't know like when like the soldier like again like I don't feel like The Last of Us was just like you're like in this room, like there's other things happening in that building, and like there's like a larger plan that's going on, and like if I wait too long, all of a sudden like they come in through the door and they take me out, right? And I don't like losing, like I like in terms of like on especially a narrative driven game, like I like to do things on the first try, so like I can. It's kind of like I don't know what's coming next. Like I have to like react as it comes at me, right? So like I was really scared about that, and then so when I took out those doctors, man, they were coming. Here's the goal. Like I know it's a radio podcast, but I mean here's the goal. Like and then there's doctors on the way in that goal, and I like I think I would have choked out 8 more doctors if I had to choke out doctors.
What's really cool though is that, and this is what I was saying to people, is like I think it's the first time in a video game where I really fell in love with characters, and you know their flaws, and you understand why each character is not someone you should relate to or fall in love with, but you do, and it's. I think that was like through a series of like the laser sharp animations, how they can make it film like, as well as like the dialogue, the narrative, everything about it is so well written, and you just fall in love with these people. And it's cool how there's no thought in your mind or there's like when you're blasting through all the security guards at the end, or like the Firefly security team, like there's no like. Maybe I shouldn't be doing this. It's like I need to save this girl because I'm in love with her, you know, like, and not as like in love like in a romantic way, but you kind of. And it's cool how I don't have kids, I don't have a daughter. I find that people with daughters would probably even get even more out of this game. But it's really cool how you feel that father-daughter relationship with this girl, which is wild because it's nothing I've ever felt before, even with a book, and they did it with a video game, which is amazing. But. Going back to the very ending, like you were saying, when Joel lied to her, I found it interesting how right away I felt like Joel shouldn't have lied to her, but at the same time, like, don't fuck with the guy who's lost his daughter. Yeah. I felt like when I was pinpointing the blame, it was on the girl that handed Ellie off to him because she knew about that situation. Like, there's a couple times where, like, I get it, Joel.
Absolutely.
And, like, you know, he's referring to that. But I found it interesting that I didn't blame Joel. I still, you know, like, again, relatable decision. I don't know if I would have done any differently. Like, but I found that very cool. I liked the ending a lot, and I didn't think I would. I was weary about it, and I felt like it went in a very unpredictable but also very clever way.
Last of Us 2 comes out next year.
Oh dear.
Do you want it to be Joel and Ellie story continued, or would you say they continue like the franchise? Because like this money is making Sony like a lot of money, right? So I foresee them making a sequel to this. Do you see them like taking another group of people like in a different part of the country or something like where like?
I would like that more. What I predict is I don't know. Yeah. It could be. Like on a personal level, it'd be cool to find out what happens to them, but at the same time, I like that idea that I want to know versus I do know. You know, like I think that I prefer not knowing rather than like actually like that interpretive ending.
I prefer like the ambiguity
Exactly.
of like the
Yeah,
ending, right? Like,
absolutely.
So, like,
it's heartbreaking.
Absolutely, and
versus,
plus you kind of make that own ending, right? At the same time,
Right.
like you kind of have to. It's open for interpretation now.
That's right.
And like you said, I much prefer that. And if they do Last of Us 2, which I'd be fine if they didn't. If they just left the Last of Us alone, like.
I don't think
here
they
to
should
eternity,
do Last of Us.
like I don't. That wouldn't bother me at all.
I think they should focus on a new IP. That's my opinion.
I think they should like Naughty Dog split into two teams. So like the team that did The Last of Us also did Uncharted 2.
Right.
So like the people that team that did Uncharted 3 are working on a new game, and I assume it's Uncharted 4.
Right.
I that's the way I think they'll do an Uncharted, and then it'll be like another IP. They're like I said before, I think Sony.
Stony.
I am, man. I got,
It's like the stoner version of Sony.
I got ripped out before this. If you can't tell. And I lost my train of thought. Okay, so Sony needs IPs that make them money. So the Uncharted series makes them a lot of money, but then Sony gives Naughty Dog a lot of like free reign in order to like develop a new IP, right? So like I think like, it'll go back and forth where like they have to do something very, very like something that's gonna make money 100%. Then they get to experiment with something else
Right.
and see how it goes. I hope they leave The Last of Us alone, or if they don't, again, like, I hope it's like somewhere else,
Yeah.
or a totally new set of characters, or
Absolutely.
even if there's a little bit of crossover, like say with like maybe just like referencing people, like
Right.
I don't know how they would, but they could say like the Firefly. The Fireflies obviously be something that still like exists
Right.
across the country. So maybe like you're a Firefly like freedom fighter or something
Right,
like
right.
that. Like that would be kind of cool.
Absolutely.
Or like I know like they have like DLC planned for The Last of Us. I would definitely wouldn't mind if that's just strictly multiplayer. If
Right,
that's just
yeah,
like
me
more
too.
maps or like another mode. Like even though I'm just gonna play Survivor, so screw you, Supply Raid. Supply Raid sucks.
Yeah, man. No fun. I didn't like it at all. I played like 2 rounds of it. It was done.
No fun. Here.
But it's funny because like I played Call of Duty in the modes where you die and you're out. I played other games like that and I didn't enjoy it as much. I found it wasn't as interesting. Which is very cool that I love it. Like it's the only mode I'll play in Last of Us.
Absolutely.
It's just really well done. For those of you who are interested in getting Last of Us, or you played it and you don't even want to bother with the online, I recommend it because if it wasn't for Matt telling me to play it, I don't think I would have. I think I would have moved on to something else. But like I'm obsessed with it. I think it's really well done, and I'm very, very impressed with how well done it is when the campaign on Last of Us is brilliant.
Plus those
10
trophies.
out of 10.
Plus those trophies.
You want them trophies?
You're gonna get those 2 golds. One for playing with the Fireflies.
Platinum.
Who's gonna get that platinum?
Matt's going platinum.
You're gonna go with that. Want that platinum?
Okay, I got a pee, so.
Yeah. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna wrap up. Like I said before, we're gonna look at probably Splinter Cell next month. Very similar format. Hopefully, we'll have a few more people to sit down and have a discussion. Hopefully, they have a very different take on it. If you want to come play Last of Us with me and Zach, my PlayStation ID is GameSetMatt. That's GameSetMatt. GameSetMatt.
Is that cap sensitive?
I don't know.
Capitals on game, Matt, set, and Matt.
Just sort it out,
Just
man.
figure
Like,
it out.
sort it out. Like, I'm not gonna baby walk you. Just come play Last of Us with us. And Zach, you are.
I'm ZaxOnTheBeach. So I'm ZAX on the beach and capitalize on all the new words. So
No spaces, right?
That's right, no spaces.
Perfect. Okay. Well, thanks for listening. This is the episode 1 of Variable. We'll see you soon. Bye.